Welcome back to Ryan's Soul, a place where we peel back the layers of psychology, emotion, and relationships to get to the heart of what really matters. Today, we're diving into a topic that might make some people uncomfortable, but it's essential if we want to build real, lasting intimacy. We're talking about disrespect toward men, especially from women, and why learning to recognize and address it might be one of the most important things you can do to protect and nurture a healthy relationship. This isn't about blaming women or putting anyone on trial. It's about creating awareness. Because the truth is, disrespect rarely shows up all at once. It sneaks in quiet, subtle ways that are easy to brush off, excuse, or overlook. But over time, those tiny cracks become fractures. And those fractures? They can destroy the very foundation of love. Let's start with a truth most people miss. Disrespect is usually a process. It doesn't announce itself with a neon sign. It arrives in a look, a tone, a delayed response, a sarcastic joke. It comes disguised as, "I was just playing," or "Don't be so sensitive." It hides in behaviors that have plausible deniability. And that's what makes it so dangerous, because when something seems small, we tend not to confront it. But letting it slide? That's how we invite bigger problems later. If you've ever been to high school or watched how things work in prison hierarchies, you've seen this in action. The bully never starts with a punch. It usually begins with a bump in the hallway. Something minor, an accident. But it's not random. It's a test. The bully is watching to see how you respond. If you apologize, laugh it off, lower your gaze, they've got their answer. You're someone who can be pushed. But if you meet that bump with a steady gaze or a confident warning, even just a moment of firmness, suddenly they're not so sure. You've signaled, "I have boundaries. I won't be easy to control." And just like that, escalation becomes riskier for them. Now, here's where it gets interesting. That same dynamic plays out in relationships, not with fists, but with words, with tone, with energy. Sometimes women push boundaries not out of cruelty, but because no one's ever explained that men perceive respect very differently than women do. What might feel like a harmless comment or a little teasing to one person can cut deep for the other. Let's say that again. Respect doesn't mean the same thing to everyone. Men and women often speak different emotional languages when it comes to respect and love. And when those signals are misunderstood, the damage can go unnoticed until it's too late. So here's something I want to offer, especially to the women watching this. A simple test, one that can save you years of confusion, conflict, and resentment. When you're unsure whether something you're doing or saying might come across as disrespectful to your man, ask yourself this: would I speak to my boss this way if I really wanted to keep my job? Think about that. Would you roll your eyes at your boss in a meeting? Would you dismiss their feedback with sarcasm? Would you make a habit of mocking their ideas, ignoring their requests, interrupting them in front of others, or venting about them to coworkers behind their back? Most of you are probably thinking, of course not. Why? Because you understand the stakes. You know how those actions would be interpreted not just by your boss, but by everyone around you. They'd say, this person is insubordinate, disrespectful, unprofessional. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, my boss isn't my boyfriend. He doesn't get to control me. That's fair. You're right. Your boss isn't your romantic partner. But that's actually the point. If you're willing to extend that much respect to someone you only work for, someone who doesn't share your bed, your dreams, your life, then why would your partner deserve less? Here's where things get real. If you're in a relationship with a man and you treat your boss better than you treat him, what you're saying, whether you mean to or not, is that your job holds more value than your relationship. And maybe, for some people, that's true. But if it's not, then you're sending a message that undermines everything you're trying to build with this person. Because love without respect, it's a ticking clock, Now, let's pause and be honest. Some of you might say, well, actually, I do tease my boss. We have a great relationship. Okay, let's tweak the test. Would you still behave that way in front of clients? Would you joke around with your boss like that if your job was on the line? If the answer is no, then congratulations. You've just proven the point. You know how to self-regulate. You know when behavior is or isn't appropriate. So the next question becomes, why does that awareness vanish in your personal life? The uncomfortable truth is that sometimes we reserve our worst behavior for the people closest to us, not because we don't love them, but because we think they'll forgive us, that they'll understand, that they'll stay. But here's the problem. No one stays when they feel disrespected for too long. Not a boss, not a friend, not a lover, not even someone who truly cares for you. And if the person you're with happens to be a man who values himself, who has options, and who knows what healthy love looks like, then he's not going to put up with emotional erosion disguised as playfulness or personality. He'll walk, quietly, firmly, and likely for good. And not because he's cruel, but because he respects himself more than the relationship you've made him feel small in.
Now, before we go any further, let's deal with the common objection. It usually goes something like this. A man isn't my boss. Or more forcefully, he's not the boss of me. And that's true, he's not. Just like your actual boss isn't your owner. You're not enslaved to your job, you're in a professional relationship, one that you voluntarily agreed to, with boundaries and mutual expectations. Your boss doesn't get to dictate your entire life, but within that specific context, he does hold a role that comes with authority and responsibility. You respect that role because it keeps the system functioning. Now, bring that idea into your intimate relationship. In most healthy relationships, someone builds the frame. Someone builds the lifestyle, defines the values, sets the pace, offers a vision. And more often than not, especially in traditional dynamics, that's the man. Not because women aren't capable, not because they aren't strong or brilliant, but because in most cases, men are the ones making the initial offer. Here's who I am. Here's the life I want. Come build it with me. That doesn't make him your boss, but in the emotional and relational context, he may be the one assuming leadership, or at least trying to. If that leadership is constantly being undercut by eye rolls, sarcasm, passive resistance, or overt mockery, then what you're really communicating is, I don't believe in your vision. I don't respect your role. I don't trust your direction. Now, ask yourself, would you say that to your boss? Would you say, I don't take you seriously to the person signing your paycheck? Probably not. And if you did, not for long. So here's the million-dollar question. Why does your boss deserve more respect than your partner? Why does a corporate job, which can replace you tomorrow, get the best version of your communication while your partner gets the scraps? If the answer is, because I have to respect my boss, then the deeper truth is this. You choose who you value, and your behavior reflects that. The way you speak, the tone you use, the patience you offer, these aren't random. They reveal what's most important to you. So if you find yourself treating your boss better than your man, you're telling him, without ever saying it out loud, that your job matters more than he does. And that message, even if it's unintentional, can create emotional wounds that don't heal easily. Now, let's flip the lens a bit. Why is disrespect so destructive to women themselves? You might think this whole conversation is just about protecting men's feelings. It's not. This is just as much about women, about their emotional well-being, their capacity to love, and their ability to feel peace in the relationships they build. Because here's the truth most people don't talk about. A woman cannot love a man she does not respect. It doesn't work the other way around. A man can absolutely love a woman he doesn't respect. It happens every day. Men can be loyal to chaos. They can tolerate drama. They can put up with disrespect for years, trying to fix it, hoping for change. But for women, love follows respect, not the other way around. If a woman loses respect for a man, even if she doesn't fully realize it, her ability to love him deeply starts to erode. It might begin with withdrawal, less affection, more criticism, a colder tone, more fights about nothing, a kind of quiet emotional retreat. Eventually, she might start asking herself questions she can't even explain. Why don't I feel excited anymore? Why am I annoyed by everything he does? Why do I fantasize about someone else who makes me feel safe and admired? But the root cause often isn't mystery. It's disrespect, the slow decay of admiration, the collapse of trust in his strength, his decisions, or his leadership. That's why men addressing covert disrespect early on isn't about ego. It's about preservation. It's not about demanding obedience or walking around with puffed chests. It's about protecting the emotional environment where love can actually survive. Because if a woman keeps pushing boundaries unchecked, two things start to happen. Her respect declines, her attraction follows. And when attraction dies, the relationship enters dangerous territory. Resentment sets in, distance grows, and the high level of interest that once kept her engaged, that magnetic pull that made her want to give, to support, to stay close, begins to disappear. But here's the subtle trap. Disrespect doesn't always look like shouting or insults. In fact, the most corrosive kind is covert, quiet, under the radar. It comes through avoidance, minimizing, withholding, sarcasm disguised as jokes. And for men, especially those who haven't been taught to recognize it, it's easy to mistake those behaviors for personality quirks or mood swings. But you can't afford to ignore them. Because unchecked disrespect doesn't just threaten the relationship, it threatens the woman's own experience of love. Think of it this way. When a woman loves a man, she wants to admire him. She wants to feel safe in his presence. She wants to trust that when he speaks, he means it, that he'll act with strength, with direction, with clarity, that he won't fold under pressure or beg for her approval. But when that man allows himself to be disrespected, when he lets sarcasm go unaddressed, when he walks on eggshells to keep the peace, when he trades his backbone for comfort, something inside her starts to shift. She may not say it out loud, but she feels it. This man can't protect me, not even me.
So let's talk about prevention. Because at this point, we're not just talking about how to react to disrespect, we're talking about how to set the stage so it doesn't happen in the first place. And here's the hard truth, fellas. If you don't address covert disrespect early, it will grow, it will evolve, it will deepen, and eventually it will kill everything that made her love you in the first place. Now, you might be thinking, but I don't want to cause drama. I don't want to seem insecure. I don't want to push her away. I get that. But let me reframe it for you. What you're protecting by staying silent isn't peace, it's decay. You're not avoiding a fight, you're avoiding leadership. And without leadership, the foundation starts to rot. Addressing covert disrespect doesn't mean lashing out, it doesn't mean yelling, it doesn't mean demanding submission. It means calmly, confidently, and clearly saying, that wasn't okay. It means showing that your standards are not negotiable and that your self-respect has a line that cannot be crossed. When you hold that frame, something shifts. Not just in her, but in you. She sees that you're not here to be managed. She sees that you're not fragile or desperate or easily manipulated. And most importantly, she sees that your strength isn't performative, it's real. And here's where we get into something deeper. A woman can feel when she's with a man who respects himself. It radiates off of him. It shapes the way he moves, the way he speaks, the way he makes decisions. It creates a kind of calm authority that doesn't need to be loud or aggressive. It just is. That energy, that's what keeps her attraction alive. That's what allows her to rest in her femininity, because she doesn't feel like she has to take over or lead or mother you emotionally. Now, here's something for the women to consider too. If you find yourself being sarcastic, dismissive, nagging, or emotionally withholding, it might not be because you're cruel. It might be because, on a deeper level, you're trying to provoke strength. You're subconsciously testing whether the man in your life can hold his ground, not to destroy him, but to feel safe with him again. It's not healthy, but it's real. Because for many women, emotional security and respect are linked. And if a man's energy has gone soft, passive, or unanchored, some women instinctively push hard. But here's the tragedy. If the man doesn't respond with grounded strength, if he shrinks, apologizes excessively, avoids conflict, or becomes emotionally chaotic, the cycle intensifies. She pushes harder, he breaks more, and both of them walk further from the love they were trying to protect. So what do? We build awareness. We raise our standards, not just for each other, but for ourselves. We recognize that intimacy without respect is just convenience, that love without admiration turns into resentment, and that silence in the face of subtle disrespect is not compassion, it's self-betrayal. You want a relationship that lasts? You want passion that stays alive, even when the honeymoon ends? Then don't settle for passive peace. Fight for respect, not with aggression, but with clarity. Now, here's a final thought, and it's a bit of a gut punch, but it needs to be said. Disrespect, left unchecked, is not just a symptom, it becomes a signal. It tells your partner, you can treat me this way, and I'll still stay. You can chip away at my confidence, and I won't do anything. You can devalue me, and I'll rationalize it. That signal, it teaches them how to treat you. Not because they're bad people, but because humans test boundaries, and we all learn by feedback. So if you're a man and your woman disrespects you, covertly or overtly, and you do nothing, then you are shaping her expectations, and you're slowly teaching her to love a version of you that doesn't fully exist, a version that lacks backbone, voice, and direction. Eventually, she won't be attracted to that version anymore. She may stay out of convenience or guilt or fear of change, but the fire will be gone. And you'll feel it. In her touch, in her eyes, in the way she no longer lights up when you enter the room. But if you course correct now, not with rage, but with presence, you might just save the relationship from slow erosion. And if it's already too far gone, then take the lesson. Not with shame, but with wisdom. Because the next time, you'll know. Respect isn't a luxury. It's the foundation. You'll speak up sooner. You'll set the tone from the beginning. You'll choose a woman who isn't just beautiful, but emotionally mature enough to meet you where you are. And most importantly, you'll honor your own worth before expecting anyone else to. So, whether you're a man or a woman, remember this: a great relationship isn't built on chemistry alone. It's built on mutual regard, shared values, emotional responsibility, and a deep, unwavering commitment to treating each other like sacred ground, not battlegrounds. Thank you for staying with me this long. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Ryan's Soul for more content like this, where we go deeper, not louder. Where we don't chase clicks, we chase truth.